are anonymous. We are a legion. We do not forget. We do not forgive. Expect us.
I'm an electric engineer, going to school, associate's degree, have a full-time job, going to part-time school, got student loans, all of that noise.
I am a father, and I run a social media company here in Cincinnati.
I work on computers. That's all I do all day, all night. Tear them apart, build them back up, help people get rid of viruses and other nasty things that keep it running slow. I'm also a family man and a father of 3.
I'm here today to be a voice to open up the resources to the public. We are not being informed of what is available to us. We're not even being informed of what's happening to us in this country, and that needs to change.
I think it kind of begins with just the corruption that's kind of come out of having a fiat currency, having a system where money can be printed at whim, and then you have people like CEOs of certain corporations that are so greedy to the extent that they will usurp everyone else around them. And they've and one of the reasons I'm here today protesting the mainstream media, they've used the media to propagate this kind of mentality on people where essentially profiting is something to be admired, even though people don't necessarily put 2 and 2 together. Even though we're printing money, there's only so much money at one time, and if you profit, there's always going to be a deficit somewhere.
Alternative media does not get bribes from the Pentagon. Doing good.
I'm here to protest against the mainstream media. You know, a little while ago I would have believed everything the news put out there. I would have. But then things started changing, things started happening. Some of the things that stood out the most to me, especially when it comes to recent events, was the truckers' rally.
Senators would be proud.
God bless you. Thank you. God bless y'all.
When you have hundreds of trucks rolling into D.C. and the entire thing wasn't covered on the news. Not only was it not covered on the news, but you can go on DC's website and view live web feeds or, cameras of all the different monuments that are in DC. But strangely enough, you didn't see any of the trucks there. And the same thing happened with the Million Mask March. We had thousands of people there, and yet you could look on those news feeds. You see your buddies are taking pictures of them standing there, but oddly enough, from a live camera, you couldn't see them. Then come to find out what it looked like was that the feeds were actually looping. So you weren't going to see it anyway, and it was that kind of blackout that just angers me.
People in hundreds of cities across the world are taking part in mass rallies planned by the global protest group Anonymous. The day of action's called the Million Mask March. It's uniting those protesting against the violation of online privacy as well as corporate greed and corrupt governments. Protesters wearing those Guy Fawkes masks are demonstrating their allegiance with the Anonymous activist group, infamous for its online anti-government actions. One of the biggest rallies is underway in Washington, D.C. RT's Gana Chichikan joined the protesters there.
Here in Washington, you have different protest groups marching under the umbrella of the Anonymous. They protest different things. They protest what they see as a police state. They protest against the persecution of whistleblowers. They protest against Monsanto, the world's biggest producer of genetically modified seeds. So generally speaking, they see themselves as a movement against the government and corporations taking advantage of the people.
So we're standing next to the White House. What do you want President Obama to hear? We want President Obama to hear that 5 years after the financial crisis, the banks being bailed out, we're still suffering, people are still struggling, they're drowning in debt. We live in a country that's fundamentally unfair. We no longer have the rule of law. From the NSA to Edward Snowden to Chelsea Manning, all over the world, people are speaking out, whistleblowers are speaking out, regular people are speaking out and saying enough is enough. We want justice, we want it now.
Spying on foreign leaders, allies, our own people, our own communications needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. And if someone doesn't say nothing about it, then it's not going to stop. So we're here to say something about it.
The organizers of the rally here in Washington have sent out a clear message of nonviolence to those willing to participate in this rally, and it has been very peaceful. Although, as you know, the hacker activists or the hacktivists with the Anonymous have shown in the past that they were willing to break the law to get their message across by bringing down government websites, for example. And people ask if a decentralized, masked movement like this can achieve anything other than just making noise.
No, everything's biased. That's just what it comes down to. You can't look at anything as being unbiased at all, because everything has the weight of somebody else's opinion behind it. So in reality, it'd be unfair for me to even call anything out for not being biased.
I speak out, and personally it affects my friends. Think I'm weird. My family, they still love me and support me, but they worry about what I'm doing. But ultimately it affects us all. We're all slowly watching our rights disappear and our money disappear, and it's time to wake everyone up, let them know what's going on.
I see it prominent throughout society today, just looking around and at people. I hate to sound stereotypical, but it's essentially brainwashing, and you can see it talking to people, especially when you're more aware of the social problems we have. People just prefer ignorance, and the media, the mainstream media that is, television, for my son, these corporations use the media to kind of give you this ignorance that you can use as a scapegoat, and you can kind of push the problems, the realities, outside of your bubble and keep living in your own little world.
You've had your share of pretty explosive encounters with the mainstream media in America, and you've accused the media of covering up government lies. Where do you stand now? How much can the mainstream media in America be trusted?
I don't think much at all. They're a soundbite news now, if you get what I mean, soundbite. There's no depth to anything. Plus, our major news organizations have really almost become monopolized. There's only like 3. Our media today is into creating the news rather than reporting it. And that's very dangerous when they're creating news rather than reporting it.
When you appear on the mainstream media, how much do you expect your voice to be heard?
Oh, I expect it to be heard very much, because far too many people in this country only rely on the mainstream media for any information. But, the internet is getting super powerful now. And that'll be next. See, that's what the government has to control next, is the internet. Whenever government says they're going to keep you safe, get ready, because you're going to lose your freedoms. So have I been censored before? I can't think of it off the top of my head. Usually they'll simply ignore you. Like Fox News, the 3 big boys at night, Hannity, O'Reilly, and Beck. I now refer to them as the 3 Stooges, because I couldn't, with this book, I wasn't invited on to any of their shows.
You've been on their shows quite a few times.
Well,
before.
I've only been on Hannity's. O'Reilly will never have me on because he can't bully me, and he knows it.
Would you dare O'Reilly to interview you?
Oh, absolutely. I would dare Bill O'Reilly to interview me. In fact, I would say, Bill, show the world you have some courage.
Well, I believe that it really does cause a lot of harm, because if they're being told bullshit, then they can't really make any informed decisions to begin with. Also, just the amount of information too can be problematic. I mean, it's information overload.
The movement out here is about creating awareness to what's not being told to the mainstream media. These include things such as fluoride in our water, GMOs in our foods, RGBH in our milk, and a be public knowledge, and just not.
What are you hoping to get out of this protest?
Out of this protest, I want a great thing to come out of this would be for people to begin to question the stories that they're hearing on the news. An even better step would be for someone to begin looking through alternative news sources to verify what they're hearing. Locally, there was a man named Ben Swan who has left and has gone independent, and he is an excellent source for checking. There's Amber Ryan, there's Glenn Greenwald, and numerous other reporters that are stepping outside of the left-right paradigm to give us news in an unbiased fashion.
It keeps everybody ignorant. You know, plain and simple. With the way things are, the way things are getting covered, with all the important news stories being filtered out, nobody knows what's going on in the world anymore. And because of that, it seems like the corporate elite are getting a stronger stranglehold on the rest of us. I feel that's one of our biggest problems right now, is just people, they don't want to believe anything we have to say. And in some aspects, I can understand. I mean, it's kind of hard to take somebody seriously who is talking on camera with a mask on. But I wear this mask because I'm you, you're me. I mean, we're all one voice. There's no individuality anymore. We're all one, and the only way to make a change and to make a difference is to show that. Be one voice.
What is mainstream media? It is the consolidation of the sources of your information from over 50 companies into just 6 corporations. General Electric, Disney, News Corp, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. Between the 6 of these giants, they own 90% of all televised media available in the United States. In 1983, 90% of the media was owned by over 50 companies. Between the big 6 owning the media, that they brought in 2010 a revenue of $276 billion. Why is this number important? It's important lies in the fact that they are selling news to you for a profit. How does that affect us? Let's say General Electric has been working on a patent to improve gasoline efficiency in their motor vehicles. Let's further assume that Stan Myers has just now invented the water-powered engine. What is the financial incentive to General Electric? To use NBC as a tool for all humanity to gain freedom from fossil fuels? Or to never air the story of water-powered engines and continue padding the profits of their inventions using gasoline-powered machinery? People are awakening and expressing a high level of distrust. 60% of the American people have a high level of distrust when it comes to the accuracy of reporting from the news of the mainstream media. There are many instances of blatant bias in the mainstream media. One example is Amber Ryan from CNN. In 2010, she won a Peabody Award for her coverage on the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. She then ran stories on child sex trafficking on Craigslist that shut down that section of the website worldwide and won her a Gracie Award. In 2011, CNN sent her to Bahrain to cover the Arab Spring. She had been given people to talk to by CNN prior to her arrival. She went outside of those sources provided to her and interviewed locals, creating a documentary called I Revolution, Online Warriors of the Arab Spring. The documentary won a Film Gold World Medal Award and had her named a finalist for the Livingston Award for Young Journalists. The story aired on CNN in the United States once and never on CNN International. After the refusal of CNN to air her documentary, she did an investigative piece with Glenn Greenwald to discover the Bahraini government and other foreign governments were paying CNN for special content.
Now, the documentary that we just saw a clip of never aired. It never aired on CNN International. Why not?
Well, I still haven't been given an exact reason as to why it didn't air. I went and visited with the president of CNN International, Tony Maddox, twice on behalf of my dumbfounded crew, and we were never given an answer. And so I started investigating the situation, Liz, after several employees who'd been at the network for years approached me and said, you need to look into this, there's something going on. It's very strange they're not airing your documentary. And after some investigation, we found out that CNN International is actually making money from the Bahrain regime. They are a customer of Bahrain. Bahrain is paying CNN International to create content that shows Bahrain in a favorable light, and then air, also not only to create that content, Liz, to then air that content on CNN International. And in one of the shows, it was called I List Bahrain. It was back in 2010. It was sponsored by Bahrain. And Richard Quest was live from the country for a week talking about the Formula One race and how progressive Bahrain was and how the Crown Prince was a reformer. Well, we saw in February 2011 that under the Crown Prince's rule, the military troops shot and killed unarmed protesters in broad daylight. And this is very dangerous because what CNN is doing, and they're not only taking money from just Bahrain, they've also produced similar content for Georgia, Kazakhstan, and other nations as well, Lebanon. And what makes this dangerous is they're not disclosing to the viewers that these sponsored programs are actually being sponsored. Or if they are disclosing it, it's in very small gray lettering at the bottom of the article. And that's dangerous not only to our foreign policy, but once again, making the American public and the public in general that's watching this network think that there are rosy situations happening in these countries when that's not the case, as we've seen with Bahrain. And it's defrauding viewers and it's defrauding their own journalists. I was not told as a journalist working at the network that this was going on. It wasn't clearly disclosed to me that at the same time I was investigating the Bahrain regime, Bahrain was a paying customer at CNN, Liz.
And you did this you found this out all through your own research. What did CNN tell you in terms of when you were like, hey, why aren't you playing my documentary that I risk danger and to bring this story? And what did they tell you as to, why they weren't playing it?
Well, that's what made me more suspicious, is because they never gave us an answer. They never told us why they weren't playing it, even though I asked the head of CNN International twice about it, and even bosses above me told me they didn't have answers for me, and I'd have to go searching for those answers. So that pretty much, as an investigative reporter, tells me that something's going on. And so on behalf of my crew, who, I got to get to the bottom of things, Liz. I mean, we had fixers and drivers in Bahrain who are currently now have been laid off because they helped us film that documentary. Some who are continually still harassed. Doctors Without Borders employee who actually drove us into these villages to show us doctors who'd been beaten by security forces. He risked his safety. Several months after our documentary, his home was burnt down, and in part activists say because he helped CNN with that documentary. I mean, these sources, these people on the ground did not know that at the same time CNN was taking money from this regime to make rosy content that would negate their content. And they risked their lives, and I feel like CNN owes them an apology, as well as an apology to viewers and its own journalists for defrauding them with this information, Liz.
Wow, Amber, really, really eye-opening, and really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us all about this. That was Amber Lyon, 3-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, photographer, and filmmaker.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Casting their countries in a positive light. CNN, of course, denied censorship and wrongdoing, but acknowledged that they had received payment from the Bahraini government for advertising. There are too many individual false stories from the likes of CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News to even begin to count. After many different examples of bias had been discovered, people began turning to alternative sources of news. These sources became known as independent or alternative media because of their lack of affiliation with the Big Six and corporate advertising. The internet is probably the biggest contributing factor to the rise of independent media. Many local stories
are grabbing national attention for the first time because the social networks have allowed people to share their stories without the aid of traditional media. It was equally greatly increased our knowledge of our deplorable actions on foreign lands. While we have for decades been kept at bay from the knowledge of our U.S. military actions, citizens across the globe can now share their stories and be heard. This march is a sign that we hear you and that we are aware of the complicity of our government and our media in the destruction of your countries.
In my own opinion, I've seen a great many things. I go back 9/11, huge inconsistencies in the story. Again, science technology nerd. I understand physics, and 9/11 broke the laws of physics, and I can't even see an engineer or architect interviewed on TV, and it's been 12 years. I have problems in the Newtown shooting. I have problems with the Boston bombing story, even the latest LAX airport. I have problems with all of it. And with the Boston bombing in Waco, Texas that same day, you had a huge explosion, and there's a lot of unknowns behind how a building just blew up, and it's getting no press coverage at all, which lends that to be suspicious per se.
It has also awakened us to the deception that is being had right here at home. The media has turned their back on one of their own. Michael Hastings was a reporter contributing to Rolling Stone, Gentleman's Quarterly, and the website BuzzFeed. In 2010, his report directly led to the dismissal of the commanding general of Afghanistan, U.S. Army General Stanley McChrystal. He won a Polk Award that year for doing this in his field. He followed that with a report on General McChrystal's replacement, General David Patrice. General Patrice served as commanding general in Afghanistan before being promoted to director of the CIA. Once Michael Hastings' report on Patrice saw daylight, it led to the removal from the CIA. On June 18th of this year at 4:25 in the morning in Los Angeles, California, Michael Hastings died in a single vehicle auto accident. His brand new Mercedes exploded, throwing the engine 50 to 60 yards from the scene and burning Hastings beyond recognition. His funeral was attended by Christopher Hayes, Rachel Maddow, and many other journalists. His death was ruled an accident by the coroner, and many circumstances surrounding the events have been left unanswered. Mainstream media will not look farther into the death of one of their own. It is safe to say if they can ignore a reporter dying under such circumstances on U.S. soil, that your interests are not going to see the light of day. There are thousands of subjects to which we've been kept in the dark in our media, and it will not shine the light onto them. There's GMOs in our food. Where's that story? RGBH in the milk. Vaccines. Are they good? Yes. Are they bad? Yes. Can I get an investigative report into how that's possible? No. The 9/11 story is at odds with the laws of physics. Can we interview local engineers to confirm information? No. Can we have a story discussing fracking laws and the EPA exemptions made for them? No. How about a neighborhood kid who raised $1,500 for puppies? That's going to be on at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 11 o'clock to show you that we care. What about drone bombing foreign citizens in foreign countries without trial? How about indefinite detention of American citizens on U.S. soil without trial? How about the inevitable loss of the world reserve currency and what impact that will have domestically? What about the fluoride in the water? What about Fukushima? We're not saying that the information that you give us is worthless. We're saying that the information we are not given is worth more. While mainstream media has long been considered the reputable source of information in the United States, people are starting to question both their information source and intent. Mainstream media has become dependent on corporate dollars to survive. and will spread propaganda to appease those that fund their business. Luckily, as evident of those of you in attendance, we will not remain silent. Today is just the beginning step in taking back our freedom. Use independent media to do research. Test your ideas amongst open-minded individuals. Debate with both friends and people from the other side of the fence to strengthen and correct your understanding. Ultimately, it comes down to one thing. Do your own research. There is a war going on for your mind. If you are questioning your own thoughts, you are winning.
My friends think I'm weird. My family, they still love me and support me, but they worry about what I'm doing. But ultimately, it affects us all. We're all slowly watching our rights disappear and our money disappear, and it's time to wake everyone up, let them know what's going on.
I would like to see a complete overhaul. I would like to see a paradigm shift, not only politically, but socially, economically. I've heard a lot of different solutions, ideas that people have had. One that really appeals to me would be a resource-based economy. It sounds like the most mature way of having a society built, where we would manage resources and not pieces of paper that really don't mean anything, because resources are finite and these pieces of paper just keep on printing. I believe that having an economy, whether it's resource-based or just takes into consideration even the slightest amount, the environment, the long-term impacts of our decisions, even for short-term benefits. Let's think about what's going to be 20 years from now. A society that understands and uses the idea that we're borrowing this earth from our children. This isn't the children aren't getting this world from us. We're taking it from them, and we're not taking care of it. And I would like to see a society that takes that into account, takes into account the needs of human people, that we are all created equal, regardless of race, class, which is the biggest issue now. None of that matters. We are all human beings. We're all the same at the genetic level, and we need to take care of each other instead of hurting each other.
Well, in reality, there's not going to be too big of a resolution. I mean, even with this going on internationally, the only thing that I expect out of this is just to wake more people up, get more people thinking about the things that are going on, because eventually, as this grows and grows and grows and grows, and more people become awake, I think that's going to start forcing the media to start reporting on what the people want, because without the people, they don't have a job, they don't have numbers, they don't have ratings. So I'm hoping just to wake up more people. That's the only way we can make any real change with the mainstream media.
Something else I'd like to say, kind of talking to the people who might end up watching this video and hearing me talk, just get involved. This might not be your thing. You don't have to come out to protests. You don't have to go do demonstrations, mass demonstrations. But the way to get to these people is to watch where you spend your money. That's what they listen to. They could care less what people say. They have free speech. Money is free speech now. They can silence us if they want. They own the mainstream media. So the way we can really get to them now, our best option is to boycott certain products, to just not spend money at certain places, to just cut their supply vein, and they'll slowly die.
And educate yourself.
Okay.
Several people from around the tri-state gathered in front of the WCPO studios to protest. I apologize, a little technical problem, but we're here now. The group Anonymous claims the media participates in helping cover up government corruption. We spoke to members of the group. None would identify themselves. One wearing a mask says he is a journalism student at a local college.
So what's your overall goal being out here in front of Channel 9?
Well, my goal is, and it wasn't necessarily directed at Channel 9, sure, mind you, it was the general media. But I think that, as a whole, it's to bring more attention to the fact that the media needs to be more accurate and more precise in what it's reporting.
When asked to expand on this and other topics, the group would not give specifics. The protest was part of a nationwide effort and primarily organized through social media. A new
situation where media, the censorship, is harming democracy. I mean, if people don't know, have so much information out there, and so much of it is being false, then they don't know what to believe. With that, you can't really have a good democracy if people don't know the truth at all. I mean, if the information is incorrect. So what's your overall goal being out here? Well, my goal is, and it wasn't necessarily directed at Channel 9, it was the general media, but I think that, as a whole, is to bring more attention to the fact that the media needs to be more accurate and more precise in what it's reporting. And not only that, but explain why people should care about it. Because right now, not enough people
investigate Obama. It's not racist to cover Obama.
Partially because people think, okay, so why should I care? Why should I care what's going on? What does that have to do? Do you have specific examples you can give me? Well, yeah, for instance,
chemtrails, GMO.
Yeah.
Can't talk about Obama without being racist,
exactly.
Even though our everything's falling apart.
But I mean, for instance, let's say that the cars, for instance, we face a lot of CO2 emissions and like a lot of traffic accidents, but there are never really solutions suggested. Or like for the gas prices also. There are no solutions that are really suggested, or those that are suggested aren't really or brushed under the rug. And what about the cookies? No one mentions about how they use millions of dollars to try to influence what the media and to enact policies which go against the American good. And often, the biggest problem is we don't know that.
Anything else you want to say? You can hop in there if you want. I said you can hop in there if you want. Sorry, I'm not trying to block your shot.
I'm going to answer a bunch of questions. I'll just make Okay, yeah, I just believe, there's plenty of proof out there that we would like real journalism. Anybody that does real journalism anymore is considered alternative media and not to listen to. There is document after document of the government and the Pentagon paying people, certain news stations to put out fake stories and not tell truths. It's not racist to question the Obama administration. We should not have to go to a supermarket and spend 3 hours looking for non-GMO food. This is ridiculous. We wish you guys would do more better journalism. I live in Batavia Township. There is poison being sprayed on us every single day from these geoengineering chemtrails. I mean, nobody investigates that. I've sent things to every news outlet I can. Nobody investigates it. We're being poisoned. New World Order is poisoning us. The big banks are taking over, and everybody knows this, but nobody talks about it. Why not? That is all I have to say. My name is Rusty Shackelford. Yes, S-H-A-C-H-L. Adriana, anonymous.
Alright, right here. This is the guy.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
The movement out here is about creating awareness to what's not being told to the mainstream media. These include things such as fluoride in our water, GMOs in our foods, RGBH in our milk, and a number of other things that should be public knowledge and just not.
What are you hoping to get out of this protest?
Out of this protest, I want, one, a great thing to come out of this would be for people to begin to question the stories that they're hearing on the news. An even better step would be for someone to begin looking through alternative news sources to verify what they're hearing.
Locally, there was a man named Ben Swan who has left and has gone independent, and he is an excellent source for checking. There's Amber Ryan, there's Glenn Greenwald, and the numerous other reporters that are stepping outside of the left-right paradigm to give us news in an unbiased fashion. I'd like to see more national stories. It's not that I don't care about the children that were robbed of a library at the elementary school, because I do. But I equally care about the radiation from Fukushima that's ruining all the food coming out of California and is in our grocery stores. So I want that kind of news covered. I want GMO studies covered. I want fluoride in water. In the state of Ohio, you can look it up by county, and it does not give me the information whether we add fluoride to the water here in Hamilton County or not. And these are things that I believe should be public knowledge. You know, thank you.
There's no weather here. There goes their supply. There goes their news. Oh, how did you find out some news stations that are like occupy Cincinnati when you're camping out, or is it just a few hours in here? This will not be an occupation, not at all. This is just small, direct action to bring attention to the issues we deem necessary. Remember that. Can I?